Hey everyone, welcome. Today, we're diving into a really powerful idea from Eckhart Tolle's work, something that goes way beyond that constant chase for happiness. We're talking about a deep, profound sense of peace, the kind that doesn't just disappear when things get tough. So let's just start with a question I think we've all asked ourselves at some point. You know that feeling, right? You get the promotion, you find the perfect partner, you reach a big goal, and you're happy. For a little while. But then, it kind of fades, doesn't it? And you're right back on that hamster wheel, looking for the next thing. So what gives? Why is happiness such a fleeting visitor? Well, this is the absolute core of what Tolle is talking about. Happiness, as we usually know it, is conditional. It totally depends on our mind slapping a good label on something that's happening outside of us. And because of that, it always has an opposite: unhappiness. But peace, peace is a completely different animal. It comes from within. It doesn't depend on anything, and you know what? It has no opposite. And that idea right there leads us straight into our first major concept: how to find a state of peace that exists way beyond our mind's constant obsession with judging everything as either good or bad. Tolle calls this the higher good, and what he means is, it's the state we tap into when we just stop fighting with the present moment. When we can let go of our mental labels and just allow this moment to be exactly as it is, we find this incredible sense of rightness underneath it all. And look, this isn't about pretending something painful is actually wonderful. It's about fully accepting the reality of what's happening right now. To really get this, Tola shares this fantastic little Zen story. So a customer walks into a butcher shop. Simple enough. And he says to the butcher, "Give me the best piece of meat you have." Seems like a totally normal request, right? But check out the butcher's reply. He says, "Every piece of meat I have is the best. There is no piece of meat here that is not the best." Now, this isn't just some slick sales pitch. He's pointing to a much deeper truth, a whole different way of looking at the world. And boom, that's the lesson. When you are in a state of total acceptance of what is, every single moment is the best moment. Just like every piece of meat was the best. Not because your mind thinks it's perfect, but just because it is. This, Tolle says, is pretty much the essence of enlightenment. This whole idea of acceptance is the key to our next point: ending the drama in your life. And when we say drama, we're not just talking about big blow-up fights. We're talking about that constant, low-level conflict and suffering that's just churned out by our unobserved mind, the ego. So, how does the ego cook up all this drama? Well, its whole worldview is based on seeing itself as this little, separate piece of a person in a big, scary world. So it's always operating from a place of fear, a sense of not enough, and its main tools: resistance to what is, trying to control everything, and creating conflict. And here's the kicker: it does all this by creating psychological time. It's either obsessing about the past or worrying about the future, doing literally anything to avoid being here now. So, the antidote to all of this self-made drama is, you guessed it, acceptance. It's almost ridiculously simple. When you stop fighting with the now, the ego basically runs out of gas. The conflict just fizzles out. The drama's over. Okay, so this brings us to the really practical stuff. I mean, it's one thing to get this idea in your head, but how in the world do you actually do it? This is where we get into the real wisdom of acceptance, or what Tolle often calls surrender. Here's a super clear step-by-step process. First, just get good at noticing when you're resisting. It's that feeling of no inside you, a no to a situation, a person, even a feeling you're having. Second, just watch the story your mind starts spinning around it. Then, and this is huge, instead of getting lost in the emotion, just feel it raw in your body without judging it. And finally, you make a choice. You consciously decide to let the moment be what it is. You say yes to it. And this is a total game changer. Realize that negativity isn't just some random thing that happens to you. It's a signal. In fact, negativity is the feeling of your own inner resistance. Whether you're feeling annoyed, angry, or sad, at the very root of it, there's a no to what's happening right now. Tolle gives this perfect, simple picture of two ducks. After they have a little squabble, they don't go off and pout about it, telling themselves a story about how wronged they were. Nope. They just separate, flap their wings like crazy for a few seconds to burn off that extra energy, and then they go right back to swimming peacefully. They let it go. Instantly. So that just begs the question for all of us, doesn't it? The ducks have their method, but what about us? What's your way of flapping your wings and releasing that built-up negative energy before it takes root? Maybe it's taking a deep breath, going for a quick walk, or just making that conscious choice to let go. I'd love to hear your ideas, so drop them in the comments below. Now here's where it gets really beautiful. When you start living more from this place of peace and acceptance, something else just naturally starts to bubble up. True compassion. And it might be a little different from what you think. Toll breaks down compassion into two levels. The first is what he calls the level of form. This is where we recognize that, hey, we're all in this together. We all have these fragile bodies, we all experience loss, and we're all going to die. Just seeing that shared vulnerability, that's the beginning of compassion. But then there's a much deeper level, beyond all our separate forms and stories. On the level of being, we are all connected. We share the exact same eternal, indestructible life. That spark of consciousness, that sense of I am, it's the same in you, in me, and in every living thing. So, true compassion is when you hold both of these truths at the same time. You see our shared human struggles and our shared divine essence. It's this profound realization of our oneness. And that feeling, that deep compassion, is the experience of inner peace. Okay, so as we start to wrap this up, let's just pull together the absolute key lessons that you can take with you on your own journey toward this incredible inner peace. All right, here are the big takeaways. First, remember that peace is your natural state. It doesn't depend on anything. Second, the key to finding it is acceptance, which completely shuts down the ego's drama club. Third, start seeing negativity not as a problem, but as an alarm bell telling you to wake up to this moment. And finally, know that this path ultimately leads to true compassion, that amazing feeling of being one with everything. And that leaves us with one last, really powerful question. It's one thing to talk about all this, but practice is everything. So I want you to think, what is one thing, just one, in your life right now that you will stop resisting? What will you simply allow to be starting today? Make that commitment to yourself, and if you feel like it, share it down in the comments. If you got something valuable out of this deep dive into peace, it would mean a lot if you'd like the video and subscribe to Mish Minds for more. Thanks so much for being here.